staff is here, so I want them to quickly talk about what they're doing here, how they're supporting this, what we're discussing here. So, sorry to keep you.
Oh, that's okay.
So Ms. Langer, if anyone doesn't know, is a school nurse.
Good evening, everybody.
Let me just quickly
Thanks,
say,
Travis.
I thank you so much for being here. I consider the school nurse, I don't know what you folks think about it, but I use the analogy, the school nurse is like the school bartender. They know stuff that no one else knows, because the students come to the nurse and talk about issues. So, thank you very much. Please.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Kathy Langer, and I've been here for almost 8 years. And my job is to keep your kids healthy and safe, okay? And I see about 60, 65 kids a day. A lot of mental issues. We also have a transgender bathroom, which is designated just for the transgenders in my office. So they change there for gym, unchanged. They use the bathroom all day during the day, and they're great kids. They come in, they talk. I'm in 6:30 every morning. So they usually come in like around 6:45, 7 o'clock sometimes, and we just sit around and talk. And they're really upfront, and they're a great group of kids. The big issue I really deal with, though, is the kids are not getting enough sleep. They come in and they want to sleep, and I can't let them just sleep. I've asked them, listen, what time did you go to bed? They say, well, 2 o'clock. I said, well, what have you been doing? You've been either on the computer, on your phone, whatever. And they're very upfront. They say, yes, we've been using the computer all night. And I'm really working really hard, and hopefully you can help me with this too. And I've been a parent myself. I've raised 4 teenagers. I know what it's like trying to get these kids to bed. And I always say being a parent is the hardest job in the world. So, but if you can get your kids to bed by 11 o'clock, because I know it's a commuter school. A lot of them have to get up at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, so they need at least 6-7 hours of sleep, the minimum. Okay. They have a long day at school. The other thing is, a lot of them are really hungry. They don't have time in the morning to eat. So they're coming in and they want to go, to get a special note, to go down to the cafeteria to get food, and then they're missing their first class or they're late for that class. So, I'm really trying to get them organized, and my job is to prepare them for college. Nobody's going to be looking over you in college. You have to start taking care of yourselves, okay? So that really is my goal. The other thing is I have a lot of kids who have asthma. If you haven't brought in the forms for asthma or brought in an inhaler, please, let me know. I will give you the papers tonight. If your child has any kind of allergic reactions and they need EpiPen, I also need those papers. Because if I'm not here, there's 4 people trained in the school to give EpiPen, but if there's no doctor's order, and say I'm out or I'm out to lunch or whatever, nobody can give those kids the EpiPen except me, okay? So, and they will have to go to the hospital, and we really don't want to do that, okay? The other thing is, a lot of kids have migraines, or they have menstrual cramps. It's so easy for me to be able to give them a Tylenol if you have the doctor sign that paper and bring it back to me and bring the medicine in. This way we won't have to call you to come and bring the medicine in or take your child home. It works for everybody then, okay? So just, keep that in mind. And that's about it. It's a full day every day, I have to tell you, We're really busy. I have a student aide who's with me all day long, but it gets hectic at times. I do like to keep the parents in the loop. I do call most parents every day if your child is in my office, or if your child is a frequent flyer, okay? You will get a phone call to help me out with this so that they're not missing class. My goal is to really keep them in class. Thanks.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Cox is with the guidance department.
I'm the 9th grade guidance counselor. And your
How many
children-
freshman parents do we have here, by the way?
I'll make sure.
Okay.
I know a few.
I'm part of guidance as well, that's why I'm here.
Oh, yes, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, right.
College counselor,
Yes.
Ms. Morales. And this is Shola Thompson. she's a social worker and she belongs to an organization that we're trying to get into the school. Hopefully with funds, hopefully we can get some funds from the PTA. But what I'm finding is I'm an academic counselor and I definitely spill over into the realm of the emotional issues that all teenagers are dealing with now. You know, it's a lot of things going on for them. So we're trying to get some more social workers into the school to help with the needs of the students. So that's what her program's about. I have some PowerPoint information that I'll hand out while Shola is talking about that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Really briefly, our main goal in most of the schools that we work with is to have mental health seen on a continuum similar to physical health, right? So everybody knows you're either really well or you're sick, you need to go to the doctor, and then there's all of these stages in between, right? What usually happens is, especially with our kids, is when it gets to an acute state, that's when they seek help. Whereas our purpose in the school is to partner with the guidance team, and so that we create an open door policy. So, if you're feeling a bit down today, come over and talk, right? And so we would have not only licensed clinicians in the school, but also interns, so that they have some more of a peer-to-peer relationship, right? With Hunter College, St. John's University, and so interns in the social work and school counseling program will also be in the building to create that open door policy for any students that just want to talk can come in and talk.
I just want to add that all of guidance, all the counselors, and so do I, have a caseload of students that we see on a regular basis as per their IEP.
Right.
So we definitely need the help. I have about, how many do you have?
I have about 8 students now. We have another counselor who's helping us.
And I have 8 students as well. And we really need the support because, we're in charge of a lot of things, and it would be great to have someone who can, in a crisis, we don't have to close the college office, we don't have to close guidance, just, to have extra support, it would be great.
Maybe another way of making this understood is that they're basically putting out fires, right? Not to downplay your wonderful children, but they're putting out fires, and so the idea here is let's not get to the point where there's a fire. Let's have a support base where kids who are on, can get support, but it doesn't reach a critical point.
Right.
I think that's one way of looking at it.
No, absolutely. And sometimes it's a student who's getting 95s and they're feeling overwhelmed because they want to maintain those 95s. So it's not always a student who's struggling academically. And I'm sure when you're home and you ask your child, how was your day? I would say, 95% of the time it's, yeah, fine. School was fine. Where's dinner? So it's really, but there's a lot more going on for them.
Right.
And it's hard to talk to your parents when you're a teenager. We all remember that. So hopefully we will be getting some information in.
So we're hoping that at the end of the year, we'll assess how the program goes.
Right.
Right.
So the design of the program is that we will have, licensed clinicians, and then under them we'll have about 15 master's level second year social work interns that have to do their internship. So they'll do their internship here, so they'll be in the building. They're also closer in age to your kids, so a lot of the identification, the things that kids want to talk about, they may not want to talk about with somebody much older. And so all of these interns will then be supervised by clinicians, and so yes, at the end of the year we'll collect outcome measures for the entire time, and at the end of the year we'll see
Right.
how it works. Yeah.
And also guidance is going to be working closely with them, so it won't be like your child's going to somebody and we won't have a connection with them, so we can talk to you and let you know what's going on within reason. Does anyone have any
Thank you.
questions?
Questions?
Oh, yeah, any questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we're down to Mr. Savage, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Andrew Savage. I wear many hats at the High School of Art and Design. I'm a special education teacher. I am the UFT delegate, but here right now tonight, I am here as the faculty advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance. And the purpose of that club is to provide a safe space for students for the support and for advocacy for causes and for issues which directly impacts the LGBT student population. And I just want to give a shout out to PFLAG right now, because as a teenager, PFLAG was incredibly helpful with my own issues and my family when I was coming out. And so I just want to give them a round of applause. And basically, what we stress to students when they walk through the doors of the GSA is, number one, whatever they say there stays there, so they don't have to worry about if they're struggling to come to terms with the fact that they are LGBT, that it's all of a sudden going to spread throughout the school. It's something that, just to make them feel safe right off the bat. The biggest issue that I would say that we have right now when it comes to the LGBT student population at the High School of Art and Design is issues surrounding transgender students. In terms of the bathroom and just when and if we're going to pursue transitioning at some point. And a lot of the times I don't really know how to answer that. I'm not a trans person, so I've not had that experience. So what I'm looking to perhaps gain from PFLAG being here tonight, and from maybe some parents who have out trans students in the schools, is to get strategies for how to help them along and to give them the support that they need. Because we are of course here as a support and resource for all LGBT students, but there are some things certainly that I could be educated about. When it comes to just some of the specific activities that we engage in the club, we do offer, October was actually coming out month, and so we were working with students, many of whom were not out at home yet. And so we were working with students to develop a timeline and to, just give them some strategies for how they were going to come out when they decided it was the right time. So a lot of that, those are just a summary of the issues that we deal with. And I'll be happy to take questions if you have any right now.
Can I ask you, does the DOE officially support you as a faculty advisor? Do you get any sort of?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
And it's actually, and although GSAs are not a DOE invention, the group called the Gay and Lesbian Straight Education Network actually originated the concept of a GSA in all schools. So yes, they do.
Right.
And
So-
there's actually a chancellor's liaison who deals with specifically LGBT issues.
Right.
And I did a workshop last summer about GSAs as a whole.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question about the trans, is that because they're not ready yet, or they haven't come up with materials for you yet, or?
I think it's just a new issue.
Right.
It's a relatively new issue for
Right.
a lot of people, especially for a lot of parents.
Okay.
And I tell the students this all the time, whenever we run into a situation where people don't quite know the answers, it's not because they're hateful, it's not because they have prejudice, it's simply because they don't know. It's a relatively new issue. So
I know that I can say, I know that I've heard amongst, when I hear from the staff, rehearsing pronouns.
Yeah. And that's a big issue. And the students actually ask me from GSA to, if you do have an out trans student, or if you are going through that process, just understand why the pronouns of their stated gender is important, as well as the name of their stated gender, why that's important, because that's who they are. Abby? Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to add that the chancellor does have guidelines, transgender guidelines, which are actually, I think, personally, really, really great. We actually shared those with some of the staff here at Art and Design. So any parent could kind of just Google that and kind of see the type of expectations that the DOE actually has for faculty in terms of supporting students who are transgender.
Okay.
I'm just curious if you have any students in your club that know they're transgender but haven't emerged yet or come out in their identity.
Yes. A lot of the times what'll happen with both with gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender students in GSA is they'll be out at school but at home it's a different story. Last year, I had students who were dressing in full drag. They were coming to school in full drag, but when they went home, all of that came off. And so a lot of the times it's like a double life for some of them until they reach the point where they're ready to come out. Any other questions?
Well, Mr. Savage, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
for
really.
having me.
Thank you very much. Okay. Drew?
Thank you. So hi, everybody. My name is Drew Tagliabue. I am the Executive Director of PFLAG New York City. I'm here with some of my colleagues and friends from PFLAG. Kalima McKenzie Sims works with me, runs our Safe Schools program at PFLAG NYC. Samuel Nathanson and Lisa Marie Newkirk are here. They're both going to be speaking tonight because they are PFLAG members and part of our volunteer in our Safe Schools program, where we bring people out into schools who tell their personal stories of however they're connected to the LGBT community to help raise awareness. But very quickly, because I want to turn it over to them and then leave time for ThriveNYC. But PFLAG stands for Parents, Family, and Friends of LGBTQ People. Now that name has expanded over time. So we are actually 40 years old, and we were started by a mother whose son came out as gay. She actually was okay with it, which was pretty remarkable, a remarkable reaction for a mother more than 40 years ago. But she accepted her gay son. But what got her active and led her to create PFLAG was that her son was attacked in a protest, and the police did nothing about it. And she realized that in order to change society, to make it that her son would not be attacked out in public, to make it that the police would understand that her gay son deserved equal protection, that she needed to do something and get involved as a parent. So that's how we started. Fast forward, we're still doing a lot of the same work today, but the work has expanded. Back then, the consciousness was all about people who were gay or lesbian, and today, as Mr. Savage indicated, now there's a lot more conversation in the media, in society at large, about transgender and gender-related issues. It's not that those issues are new. There have always been transgender people, but media today, internet, online, has enabled all of us to learn more about the existence of trans people. It has allowed trans people to find one another more easily and to come together and realize that the things that they might have thought that they were going through totally alone are something that there are lots of other people in the world who were experiencing. So it's not that trans is new, it's that trans visibility is new. PFLAG has gotten involved in working a lot with families that have transgender kids as well as lesbian and gay kids. Now there's a big difference between the two concepts though. And when you are thinking maybe about these topics, it's helpful to think of it this way, I think. Many PFLAG parents find this helpful. So the majority of the world, most people are straight, attracted to the opposite sex, and most people haven't really ever thought that they had to think about their gender. The gender that they felt in their head, that they felt themselves to be, is the same as the gender that they were told that they were at birth. So that's how most people are. People who are, we know that people who are lesbian and gay, born from birth and grow up and figure out that they're attracted to the same sex. That's relatively easy for a lot of people to understand because everybody understands attraction. Whether you're straight or gay or whatever, we all feel attractions. So if somebody says they're attracted to the same sex, okay, I get attraction, so I can get that. Transgender is about gender identity. It's how somebody feels in their head. It's sometimes a little more difficult for other people to understand because there's not necessarily the same kind of category. Most people don't really think or realize that they have to think about their gender because most people don't. So it's only when somebody's transgender and they feel a real conflict between what they feel in their head and who they were told they were when they were born that they have to think about it. But I think it's really important to realize that the feelings that transgender people have are real, and we all need to be conscious more about gender issues than maybe we have been in the past. So PFLAG as an organization, we help families through that process, and we help LGBTQ people through that process. We run support groups regularly in many locations around the city where families can come if a child comes out and they just want to talk to somebody. PFLAG support is based on peer support, so it's families helping other families, families that have had somebody in the family come out as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, whatever, helping other families that are just learning that somebody in the family is LGBT. We have general support groups. We have dedicated groups for families with transgender loved ones. We have another dedicated group for families that have children who are 12 and under, who are maybe trans, maybe or gender non-conforming, but there's things going on, so parents with kids under 12. So all information on all of that is on our website, and we have some brochures and other materials that we've left over there, so please take that if you're interested. Our support groups are also open to people who are LGBT, who are looking to figure out how can they come out to their families, or what can they do to keep their relationships with their families strong, because in support, what we really want to do is keep families close, because the most important thing for an LGBT young person is to find family acceptance. We know from research that, unfortunately, LGBTQ kids are at risk for a lot of negative factors at much greater rates than kids in general. They are subject to bullying. They drop out of school, they skip school more frequently, get involved in substance abuse and other things more frequently. A lot of that is because of the pressures that they are under to find acceptance. And if they find families that are accepting, even maybe not rah-rah happy, but just some level of acceptance, the relative occurrence of those risks goes down dramatically. So acceptance is really important, and that's what our support groups aim to help families achieve. And then we also run a variety of programs in schools working with kids directly to reduce bullying, to reduce harassment, and to educate kids on these topics. With that, I want to turn things over to Lisa Marie and Samuel, who are with me, because they are each going to tell their own personal story of being connected to PFLAG and the LGBT community. And I'm going to invite Lisa Marie up first.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Lisa Marie Newkirk, and I am a member of PFLAG. I came to the community a couple of years ago seeking support when I found out that my son was gay. I still have not made it to a support group meeting because almost immediately I got the emails and invitations to come out and speak as a volunteer, as a parent, and I thought, to my son, come on, we need to go out and tell your story. And I dragged both of my sons. My oldest at the time, he was about 17, he's now 19, and the youngest at the time was about 7, and he's now 9. So we came to the meetings, and I've been telling my story ever since, and it has served as like a support for me. So let me tell you about Guy. Guy is my son. That is his name, Guy. And when he was about 4 years old, I noticed some of his feminine behavior. He liked to put on my clothes and shoes, and it was nothing for me to worry about at the time. I think he invented those, those faces that the girls love to do, especially with the selfies and the high gloss lips, because at the age of 4, he was already doing that. By the time he got 8, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know, he's really into girl stuff. I think I caught him on something called Star Doll. I don't know if any of you know, but I know the kids know that there's something like Star Doll where they can go online and dress up girls. Still concerned. So through the years, I would talk to my friends. There was a big fear around my son, who is a young black boy in the city, being gay, and what it would be like for him. But 14 would come, and one day I was looking at pictures of Jada Pinkett and saying, oh my goodness, she looks a little different. I wonder if she did some work, and I'm talking to him at the time. And I pull up some old pictures from when she was much younger, and I'm saying, wow, guy, look at her. She was so beautiful. Look at this, look at this. And he's like, oh gosh, Ma, are you gay? And I said, no, but are you? And he's like I'm hanging on, and he's like, Ma, how could you ask me that? Why would you say that? And he's a drama queen. He's a drama queen, so he was, Ma, why would you? And I'm just like shaking with like anticipation to know what he's gonna say. And he goes, no, I don't think I'm gay, I think I'm bi. I'm probably gonna give up my virginity to, a girl in prom night. And so I'm like, well, guy, if you're gonna choose, can you choose a girl, and have children and be straight, like, don't experiment. This is not what it's all about. And then I must have vomited every fear and emotion in like a 45-minute span. And I talked about what I know is in the Bible and what they say, and it went on and on until I'm looking at my baby's face. And this is where my healing comes from. And I just remember feeling like, Guy, whatever makes you happy. And that was the end of our discussion. And from that point on, that boy has been flying. He's been amazing. He's now in school away in Florida. You saw a complete transformation, his sense of confidence, and what I had learned, because shortly after that I had become involved with so many people from the community, and what I realized was that I was only afraid. They were my fears for what life would be like for him. But what I learned was that he's very much supported and very much respected. And I have come a long way into accepting. And I like the new word, accept, right? Because everybody wants to be accepted. I remember when the word for dealing with people, right, was tolerance. Mm-hmm. Like, who just wants to be tolerated? So with that, in my own personal journey, I like to encourage myself and others to live in your most authentic being. So whatever that thing is that you want to do and you're expressive, whatever that thing is that has you expressing yourself at your highest level, do that. So if it's that bikini that you've always been wanting to wear, wear it, because I can't imagine that someone's sexuality, that other people get to make a choice as to who they get to be or who they get to love. And if you had been restricted from that, where would that leave your sense of expression, your sense of being, your sense of that most unique person in the world that is unique? And it's unique, period. And you have a place in the world. So with that, I say to you, parents, be open and look not to judge. It's very freeing when you're accepted, when you're accepting, and get support. PFLAG is here, and have a wonderful evening. Anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions? Yes.
How's his brother doing?
His brother is great. It's so funny because what I learned, I always thought my younger son knew. He always talks about, oh, Guy, when I'm not home, he's always wearing your wigs, Ma, and he's doing this and he's doing that. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so I thought he knew, but one day, about 6 months ago, I said something about, your son is gay. He likes, your son, your brother's gay, he likes boys. He was like, oh, I didn't know that. But he knows his behavior. He knows, that this is how he is, but he's very much accepting, and he's had people, say to him, your brother acts like a girl. Why does he like to dress like a girl and act like a girl? And he was like, that's my brother, I love him. And so that's how that is. Now his father, on the other hand, not accepting at all. He has been not supportive or, no. So his relationship hasn't really been there. Other members of the family just don't really address it. I have one girlfriend who says that in her family, it was never a discussion. She said that in my family, we don't talk about who the heterosexual members of the family are sleeping with, so why do they need to talk about who my son's sleeping with? And that's, an interesting point of view, so they never address it. But, I say at least he's free to be who he is. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, Samuel's gonna share.
Hi. So, my name is Samuel, and I have an older brother. So when I was born, my mom was so happy to finally have a baby girl. So I was born a girl, now a guy. We'll get to how all that changed, don't worry. But when I was a little girl, my mom was so happy. She would teach me this little phrase. She would be like, how long did mommy wait for you? I go, 27 years. It was kind of weird. So we always had a really great relationship growing up. We were kind of like Gilmore Girls. Like, we go out to dinners and to shows and everything. But growing up, I feel like I would never really fit in with the other girls. I was always into video games when they wanted to play dress up. I was always doing the opposite thing. When I got to middle school, people started to bully me for that. I mean, it was definitely, I had big bushy hair, I didn't brush, and I had baggy clothes and like band t-shirts, and that was what I wore, and that wasn't okay because everyone else, was on to fashion, and then that just wasn't me. And my female friends tried to help by giving me a makeover. They took me to the mall, showed me like how to dress and everything, and I put on the outfits they said, and then I went to school, and the bullying stopped. So I was extremely feminine all through middle school and all through high school because that's how I had to be to make the bullying stop. And one thing I knew I couldn't change was that I like girls, which made me a lesbian. And I wanted to tell my mom because we were super close. I wanted to talk to her about it. I wanted to like ask her advice on crushes. I just wanted to let her know. And I usually tell kids that I have some advice, and if they're thinking of coming out, never do it while your mom is driving. Because I did. So we're in the car, and I think now is the time to tell her because she can't escape. So I said, Mom, I got something to say. I just got to get it out right now. And she's like, what's wrong? What? I said, I got to tell you, I think I like girls. I'm gay. Is that okay? And she freezes, and we haven't crashed. So I'm like, okay, we're alive. This is going well. And she takes a breath, and she says, okay, is that it? That's okay? Is there anything wrong? What's wrong? And I was like, wait, I didn't understand. She said, no, it's fine. You can like girls. Is something wrong with you? Like, what is wrong? She thought it was something much bigger. And I was like, no, it was this huge weight off my shoulders that she was accepting. And we went home and told my dad and my brother. And I felt like the luckiest kid in the world.
How old? I
was 15 when I came out as a lesbian. And then I hit 18. And I decided I am moving right out of my house. Like I was done with her rules, wanted my own place, and I went to Queens College. I got my own apartment with a couple of roommates, and I joined the campus LGBT club because I wanted to meet other folks who were like me. And in the club, we were doing a drag show to raise money for a gay youth homeless shelter. And I wanted to participate in the drag show, but I was scared because showing that guy side was what got me in trouble in middle school and in high school. I was afraid to let that back out. My friends were like, no, do it. It'll be a great time. And I was like, I don't know. The big difference between dressing in drag and being transgender is when you dress in drag, it's just for fun. It's for performance, and the next day, you're back to who you really are. When you're transgender, it's another category entirely. I dress like this because this is how I'm comfortable. It's not a show I put on. This is me. So it's kind of a big difference there. But we were doing the drag show, and I said, okay, I don't know. And the day before, I had my hair about down to here, and I just chopped it all off. I was like, I'm done with the long hair. And I got on stage. I had a leather jacket and a guitar, and I rocked it. I was singing and dancing, all my friends cheering for me. I sang Jesse's Girl, by the way, which I tell the high schoolers now, and they're like, what? So, just saying. But it was fantastic, and all my friends were cheering for me, and I felt like I was flying. And I was so confused because I didn't know why this show that was supposed to be just silly and fun made me feel so good. And it wasn't until I met my first transgender friend that I knew. His name was Oliver, and he began transitioning in high school. He changed his name legally, he was taking hormones, a medicine that changes your body, and he was living his life. And he looked really happy. And the light bulb just went off. Like, I have been feeling this way my entire life, and I never had a name for it. I never heard the word transgender until I was 19. And I think the very next day, I went out and got a binder, which is a shirt that makes your chest go down. I asked all my friends to call me he and Samuel, and all my friends were okay with it, but I was nervous about telling my mom, because she really loved the fact that she had a daughter. I mean, the second I was born, everything was pink. It was like pink central, it was nuts. She loved having a daughter. But I wanted to tell her, because I was excited. I really was excited. I knew this part of my life. I knew this about myself, and I wanted to let her know. So I learned my lesson. I did not tell her in the car. I visited home, and it was just her in the house. My brother and my dad were out somewhere. And I sat her down, and I was wearing the binder, so I was visibly different. And I said, I need to tell you, I learned this about myself. I finally know that I'm transgender, and I was always supposed to be a guy. Can you call me he and Samuel? Can you do that for me? And she got this look on her face like I was speaking a completely different language. Like, nothing was processing. It was sort of just like a nothing face. I thought she didn't hear me, so I just said it again. I said, Mom, I'm transgender, and she just says no. I'm like, I'm not really asking you. I'm pretty darn sure that this is how I feel. And she says, you can't do that. You can't just take away my daughter. Like, you've been my daughter your whole life, and you're gonna keep being my daughter. And no matter what I said, no matter how I tried to explain to her, there was just this wall up, and she just wasn't listening. So I said, okay, I'll try another day. So I went back to my apartment in Queens, but every time I went home to Long Island to visit, it was like War of the Worlds. Like, it was, at school, I was happy, I was the person I had to be, I was Samuel. At home, she was calling me she and the wrong name, and it was like living two different lives. And months passed like this, and I said, Mom, look, you have to get on board. This isn't going back. I'm happy. I'm happier now than I was before. And I need you to be like on board with this. And she said, I can't. I feel like you killed my daughter. Like, you're not even here anymore. And I said, okay. I said, if that's truly how you feel, there's nothing more I can do. So I left. I removed myself from the situation because it just became too toxic to be around her anymore. I still spoke to my brother and my dad on the phone, but I couldn't visit home because there she was. And I did everything I had to do. I went back to school. I legally changed my name. I started taking hormones, but I missed my mom. And a whole year passes without hearing from her. And after that year, I get a phone call, and she says, I'm ready. I'm ready to listen. I will call you he. I will call you Samuel. I will do whatever you want. I was like, okay, fantastic. But why now? Like, what changed? A year ago, no, now suddenly yes. What's different now? And she says, I have cancer. I have liver cancer. And I want to get to know you while I still can. And so she tried. And that was the important part. She was listening. She was talking again. We didn't have much time left. We got two and a half years, and then she was gone. You don't get that time back. If your child comes out to you, and if you're not okay with it, that is fine. I'm not asking that you be okay with it. What I am asking is that you keep talking. You keep asking questions. You keep trying to learn and trying to be okay with it. Because when you close that door, it is really hard to open it again. Trust me. So thank you guys for listening.
Yeah. So,
Can I have actually
do you have a few
question?
minutes for questions? I guess.
I have my cousin's child is transitioning, and I'm fully on board and accepting, yet, because I've known him as a he my whole life, and then I'm not doing it because I'm not accepting. I just call him he, and then I have to correct myself, and I feel bad.
So my
But
advice.
it's just like, I feel bad for your mom too.
How old was she when you found out?
I've known him since he was born.
She.
she. I'm still doing
It's okay.
it, and I feel terrible.
I'm saying, what age did she come out?
Both her parents died, and that's when she finally, so she's 24.
24. So for 24 years, you've known her as he, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And it's going to take some time to unlearn 24 years.
Yeah.
And it's okay. You're doing the best thing you can. Is when people would mess up for me, they would go, oh, well, she said this, sorry, he said this, and just keep talking. The absolute worst thing you can do is if you say, he said this. Oh no, I mean she. I'm sorry. She's transitioning. It's new, and then if you
Yeah.
like, if you make a big deal out of it, it's
Yeah,
like, no,
yeah,
stop,
yeah.
please, stop, don't.
I see the difference.
Yeah.
It's
So
true.
just
Yeah.
correct yourself and move on.
Yeah.
That's honestly the best thing you can do, and that will show her that you're trying, and that it's going to become second nature eventually. So yeah, just don't make it a big dramatic deal.
Thank
and-
you, that's great
Yeah.
advice.
So many parents in our groups with transgender kids, the pronouns are like the last thing that they get control of. Like, they're on board intellectually, emotionally,
Yeah.
they're there. Even then, so they transition on the actual name. The proper name is somehow easier to do.
It is.
Those darn little he, she
Yeah.
pronouns are
Because
like
you
the
learn them at,
hardest
like,
thing.
2.
They slip
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Like when you're like a toddler, you learn the difference between he and she. So it's hard to
Yeah.
unlearn that. But
Thank you.
you're doing the best you can. Any other questions?
She told me that he met someone and wrote a letter to that person, that he would stop taking the hormones and the therapy and everything if he would correspond his feeling for him, that he would become a woman again. So,
It's
yeah.
it's a confusing time. You said 15?
Now he's 15.
Okay. Do you guys remember what it was like being 15? It's rough. it's what he might be going through now is a period of questioning, which is certainly okay. That it could have been he was exploring his gender expression and then figured out that it wasn't for him, or it could have gone another way. It's not always black and white. You know, there's not one way to be anything. And thinking about it and exploring, and I mean, it's a rough situation. There's no really good answer.
Yeah,
to
well,
it.
and
Yeah.
teens, teens can go through this questioning, uncertainty. It's not that it can be that they're trying to figure out how can they best fit into the world. They know what they're feeling, but sometimes it seems like if they just did something else to get along, things would be easier. So they can do things to avoid confrontation, to avoid difficulty. So you as a parent looking at a teenager, it can seem like they're all over the place, but it's good that this person is getting therapy, because it's really important to get underneath what they're doing on the outside, what they're doing to fit in, all of that, to get to what is really going on with them and where really are they, what are their actual feelings.
Is it possible to reverse all that?
Some
Just in
things.
case that,
Well, they wouldn't. Well, somebody who's 15 would need to reach age of majority. Would need to be 18 before they could do anything to themselves.
That would be irreversible.
Right. But no, it's possible to do things to your body that are not reversible. Somebody who's transgender, a transgender person is transgender because the gender that they feel in their head, their gender identity, doesn't match up with the gender they were assigned at birth. What they then do about it can be different for every transgender person. Some people choose to take hormones, have surgery, do as much as possible that will physically make their body match up with the gender that they feel in their head. Other transgender people don't need to do all the range of issues. People said they may decide not to have surgery. They may decide simply to take hormones, and that changes them enough. They may not take hormones or have surgery, but change the way they dress, the way they present themselves to the world. So there's a whole range of things that depends on the individual. So in this, I can't speak
can't
directly to this one case. Yeah,
Sorry, I know it's not
Thank
the
you.
answer you wanted.
yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
But I mean, PFLAG, if you or anybody connected to this family wants to come to PFLAG meetings, we get lots of people coming who simply need to ask questions and need to find a safe space to ask questions about somebody in their family or somebody they love. So,
Where are you located?
our meetings are all over the city. We actually don't see anybody at our office. We have meetings all over. There's a meeting this Sunday at St. Bart's Church, which is on 51st and Park, so very close to here. And then there are meetings at different places. So I would say take one of our brochures, visit our website where you can find information on all of our regular meetings.
I do want to say, first of all, thank you.
Thank you
so
very
much. I know that we said this could be the beginning of future, I don't know if you want to quickly say what kind of workshops. I think you mentioned that there are for
Yeah.
students, right?
So we go into schools all over the city. Last year we were in about 50 middle schools and high schools doing programs with students where parents share their stories of their child coming out and how they responded, and LGBTQ people talk about their own experiences growing up in a way to first of all, help kids who are struggling with their own identity know that there are people out there who've gone through it, to help schools communicate to the students that the school is open and accepting and affirming and that they can find somebody to talk to if they need somebody, but also to let straight kids know that they can be an ally and how they can support their peers. And also to let straight kids know that it's okay to have an LGBT person in your family. Because one of the big things is that a third of all immediate families have an LGBT person in the family. So, a lot of straight kids are out there with an LGBT brother, sister, parent, uncle, whatever, and when they're made to feel like there's something wrong with their family because there's some person in their family who's not right, if that's what the message they're getting, that can be really harmful to them and their sense of their family. So we do a lot in schools to help kids feel okay.
So maybe that's something we can explore later. There's an interest, I guess maybe working through Mr. Savage, see if there's any possibilities for that. So
Thank
again,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank
you for
you.
having us.
So now we're up to Ms. Deep from Thrive.
Hi everyone. That was so amazing to listen to and be in the same space as a queer person. It's really I never heard conversations like this in educational spaces. That's amazing, the work y'all are doing.
Thank you.
So my name is Gagan. I am an organizer with ThriveNYC. How many folks know what ThriveNYC is? So a few hands. ThriveNYC was started in 2015 by the First Lady of New York City, Charlene McCrae. Her daughter at that time was experiencing acute depression, and they didn't know how to get in touch with resources. They didn't know what to do about their daughter's depression, the mayor and the First Lady. And it's that's really hard to imagine, right? Folks with so many resources and a lot of power don't know how to help connect their daughter to resources. So because of that, the First Lady Charlene McCrae, she started an initiative that runs with 54 different programs, right? So looking at mental health in 54 different ways. In the same way that gender and sexuality are on a spectrum, mental health is also on a spectrum. It was mentioned earlier, right? It isn't just you're healthy and then you're bipolar, right? There's so many feelings in between. There's so many experiences in between. So I'm just gonna run over ThriveNYC a little bit. 54 initiatives is a lot. We're only gonna touch a few. So ThriveNYC is driven by 6 main principles, changing the culture, right? Changing the way that we see, interact, and talk about mental health. So instead of using language like this person is crazy or this person is mad, using more affirming language, this person is going through something, they're experiencing a depressive episode, right? Like actually naming emotions instead of using derogatory language around it. So just changing the way that we view and emphasize mental health. And initiatives that we utilize to change the culture across New York City, one is mental health first aid. How many folks have heard of mental health first aid? Awesome. Anybody trained? Yes, that's awesome. So mental health first aid, we have two trainings. One is for adults working with adults, and the other is adults working with youth. It's so important that everyone in New York City and everywhere start to familiarize themselves with basics of mental health, right? Like what symptoms, what triggers can I look out for with my child, right? Is my child going through just has the blues, or are they like showing signs of depression? Are they showing signs of like a mood disorder, right? And how should we have this conversation? So if y'all are interested, we can also we can organize a mental health first aid training in the school. We can bring trainers from the Department of Health. It is an 8-hour course, but it's super valuable. Second driving principle is act early, which we know is super important. Preventative measures, preventative conversations are way more effective than reactive measures and reactive conversations. One amazing initiative under Act Early is social emotional learning. So what we've done is we've partnered with all preschools throughout New York City to make sure that we're bringing in social emotional workshops. How do we make sure that kids learn positive coping skills, learn how to name the feelings that they're experiencing, learn how to experience anger but not to accelerate anger. So important. The third driving principle is closing treatment gaps, which, accessing mental health in New York City is very difficult. I've had folks who are neurologists or have PhDs in mental health on Staten Island not know how to access help on Staten Island. Most of our resources are concentrated in Manhattan, and then we have little hubs in Queens and Brooklyn, but it's harder to access resources in the Bronx or on Staten Island. So what we've been trying to do is we've been hiring mental health consultants and social workers and placing them in community-based organizations throughout the city. So we partnered with Hunter College, and we've added 200,000 additional clinical hours in the city. And if y'all are interested, I can map out the closest mental health consultants and counselors who are free of charge. They do things like depression screenings, just like having, or they do CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy with their kids. And all of these services are free of charge.
So within this area?
Within this area. So I can map that out and share it with you if you want to share it with the parents. Because sometimes one of the barriers is just cost, or of course cost and then
Accessibility.
Accessibility,
Right.
thank you. Another driving principle, which is my favorite, is partner with communities. New York City is a very diverse city. The way that South Asian community internalizes and stigmatizes mental health is very different than the way the East Asian community does it, right? It's so different than how the Italian American community does it. The way we all stigmatize mental health, but there are certain cultural elements that we need to address when we're trying to unpack that stigma, right? So what we try to do is we try to partner with CBOs, community-based organizations, or faith-based organizations throughout New York City to start conversations around mental health. First is just the basics, like what is stress, what is anxiety, and try to normalize those terms. The other two are more boring. It's using data better and strengthening government's ability to lead, which we have been doing. We've been bringing in mental health stakeholders from around the country to change the way that mental health is looked at in the whole country. Even though we don't have a lot of support from the federal government right now, the city is trying to take charge in still trying to create a shift. Now that we've gotten the boring stuff out of the way, I have some questions for y'all. I'm not so familiar with the student body here, but I want to be more familiar. How do your kids, how do they internalize stress? And how do they speak about stress with y'all? Anybody?
They go into their room and close the door.
Yes, my son, he said that I repeat over and over the same thing, but I don't repeat it the same day. I repeat it next or every other day because he keeps doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he has me stressed out because
He has you stressed out.
he has friends that don't have the same interest that he does, so I am afraid of, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very moody, whistling,
Mm-hmm.
and then avoidance, right?
Yeah.
My son has an extremely challenging relationship with his father, and so he's gotten to the point of almost denial, right? And he's like, oh, I don't care, oh, I don't love him, because clearly that's not it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's worrisome, right, in terms of how that will manifest, right, at some point.
Yeah.
I just want to add, my daughter, she will go in her room, she says, Mommy, you don't understand, and you don't listen everything. She's a senior here, so you know what's going on. She has senioritis, right.
Yeah.
And she's in fashion, so she has portfolio to do. You name it, she has it to do. So she said, oh, you don't understand, you don't this, you don't that. So I said, remember, I was a teenager too. I went to college, I was young, so you can talk to me. The door just closes. That's it. So I don't know. Right now I'm stressed, I'm in pain, I'm everything. I have gray hairs like crazy.
I don't see any from here.
Oh, well, it's down, it's there.
And do y'all distinguish from like positive stress and then negative stress?
Yes.
Yes, right? It's so important to emphasize positive stress versus negative stress, right? Positive stress is like me before this meeting, like writing things down really fast to get ready, that burst of energy or that like, I need to get this done, right? Negative stress is like me thinking about this meeting every single day leading up to it and just letting it manifest.
Right.
Yeah, positive stress is amazing. It's like a trigger to your brain to get something done really quickly. Negative stress is like what leads to like long-term ailments that lead to like mental health issues later on in life. And the thing with like stress and self-esteem is that they go hand in hand. Both have a lot to do with learned behavior. Right? Like, how do we start at a young age emphasizing positive stress and emphasizing positive self-esteem? You know, a lot of it, I think I am obsessed with language. I think language is a very, very important thing that sometimes we overlook. The way that we speak to each other, the words that we choose to use are so important and leave such a long-term impact. Right? Like if your child is talking about their work and they're like, oh, like I just want to quit, I'm just not as good as this artist. How can they themselves, when they speak about their work, use positive language? Oh, this artist is amazing, I aspire to be like them. Like how do we create that shift so then like this is a behavior that they're learning early on as opposed to like when they're older they have to unlearn everything that they've like all the routines and all the behaviors that they've already adapted to, then they'll have to unlearn. A great thing that my mom is obsessed with yoga. So like when I was a kid, I grew up around a lot of like, you know, you're getting sick, you need to hold your nose and you breathe out, in through this, you out through that. So like deep breathing was emphasized to my brother and I very early on. It's so crucial. Two really great ways to navigate stress for young folks is meditation, which we don't emphasize in like education systems or we don't emphasize in classrooms. but it's so important. And exercise we do, you know, but like meditation. I'm actually gonna ask y'all to do one breathing exercise with me just to see if we can feel ourselves, like just a shift from how we felt a moment ago. So what we're gonna do, the sadhana, is you're gonna put your right hand on your heart and your left on your stomach. You're gonna put your chin on your chest. And you're gonna breathe in really deep and hold it. And hold. And when you release your breath, release it really loudly. Breathe in and hold. Breathe out and release. Breathe in, hold, breathe out and release. You can lift your chin up. And you feel a shift in your body. You feel a shift in like just even the way you speak, your cadence, right? And this is like exercises like this are exercises we need to normalize, right? What has happened with the millennial generation and Generation Z is what we've done is we've normalized chronic stress. And we've normalized not sleeping and normalized drinking a lot of coffee and intaking caffeine, right? Like that is something, even if, when you look in the media, that's something that's so romanticized. That's what it means to be an adult, to not sleep, to drink a lot of coffee. So that's what kids do to feel like adults. They don't sleep, they drink a lot of coffee. But instead, if we said that, oh, you feel a little panic coming on, you feel your heart racing, you're worried about this assignment, what you need to do is breathe and know that you can do it. Positive affirmations. And like an important thing that worked for me when I was younger, and works for most youth, is finding community. Community is so important, and this is like creative high school, right? Like there's so many creatives, but still like the kids need their own like little groups, right? Oh, you're into art, but you're more into like certain type of photography, or what am I into? Into certain type of like, I love performance art. So just kids who just have their own little subgroups. It's so important for kids to find community where they can like be around folks who also build up their self-esteem. Really important for kids not to be around other toxic folks who might just like be like, oh, your art isn't good enough, or you're not like an amazing person. Like things that like they might already be saying to themselves, they don't need any more of that around them, right? They need folks who like build them up and be like, even when they're offering like critique, let it be constructive critique, right? Like, your work is amazing. I think if you did this, it'll be even better. Instead of like, you know, that jealous like breaking down of each other, we need to create more supportive spaces. And when I was talking to Miguel, we were talking about like, I had so many questions about like groups, student groups and student-led activities. And Miguel told me one of the few like positive like groups at the school are GSA, right? But we need more student-led mental health affirming spaces, right? Where like kids like create their own content, create their own like creative alternative things, or they do yoga together, they meditate together, or like have, or do whatever they think is cool. Yeah, but
Can I just to play devil's advocate and to throw something, I hope it doesn't sound weird. Is playing video games, you mentioned meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything to the idea that zoning out in a game or on a phone, is that meditation, or is that not really considered?
okay, I don't think that's meditation, but if your child wants to play a video game instead of just like putting so much pressure on themselves and just focusing on their work, that's positive, right? For them to just like turn, and like honestly, video games do help build certain skills, you know. My idea of like meditation is plugging out instead of like plugging into more things that stimulate your mind, plugging out and just like focusing on how I feel, focusing on the space that I'm in. and taking note of those things, but everyone's meditation is different, right? And it's if playing video games helps you relax, helps you calm down, and helps you turn your brain off at the end of the day, like, I think that's fine.
I have a question. You mentioned something about the self-esteem and tools to shift it to being more positive rather than I'm not as good as the next person. Can you touch upon that, like, once again? Because I felt like, I mean, I feel like I can tell my child it 100 times, but until they believe it themselves, it doesn't matter how positive I am and how many times I tell them that. I mean, what is it? I know there's no magic pill, but what is it that shifts that from a negative to a positive? I mean,
I will say it's amazing to have parents who are positive. There are kids who don't have parents who affirm them and give them a lot of praise and say, you are the most amazing, the dopest person to have lived. Not everyone has those parents, so it's amazing that you do that for your kid. But what really does work is when it's peers. When your peers are also saying really uplifting things to you and also saying that they're invested in you. So having that group of kids, that's what really does create a shift in self-esteem.
But what if you have the kid who then just comes home from school and goes into their room and then it's a matter of forcing them to get peer recognition.
Yeah.
I mean, do you take that step? Do you say, I don't care, you're not coming home today, you're staying home for club? I mean, is that...
You live in New York City, there's so many activities, there's so many social activities, and maybe you could have a conversation with them and be like, okay, once a week or once a month, you're gonna go to the social group, right? We can't ignore that some kids are more introverted or more extroverted, right? Some folks feel more energized when they spend more time by themselves than they do with other folks, right? But I think social exposure is so important. Social isolation is harmful in the long term, right? But if they like video games, then you can just there's this club that talks about these games and how to make them or whatever, and be with a group of peers that are very like-minded, as opposed to there's this chess club at school, you have to go there. Yeah.
I find the same, sorry, but he comes here, but I have a twin, and she's one that's not very, but I told her, I said, just find your main interest, what you like.
Mm-hmm.
She was into basketball at one point, so freshman year, it was she really wasn't doing anything. This year, I said, well, try lacrosse, or try this, or try that. And now she's I said, just try it. Maybe it'll be something that you like, or something. Just go to the first meeting, or sign up. Now she's in 3 different clubs.
Yeah.
She's in rock club, GSA, and some other thing, and lacrosse. I said, try it. I said, the worst thing is going to be that you don't like it. But I've always taught them since little. Just when you take them out to eat, well, I don't like that. Well, how do you know? Did you taste it?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe something of interest that he might want to do.
I don't want to make this all about me, I'm sorry, but I have to say I did try that with something, and he hated it.
Yeah.
And didn't want to say anything. I feel like I'm gonna cry. It's therapy for me. Hated it so much and felt like he failed because I said, oh, just try it. And it became a really big issue. I was a little afraid because he was so upset over the fact that he hated it so much. And then he was then afraid to then come back and tell us that he hated it. And he actually wandered through the city for a full day. We couldn't find him for a few hours, and then he finally came home. But it's instinctually I feel that, just try it. But it wasn't that simple.
Yeah.
Because it did end up being something he didn't like.
Have you thought about mentorship? You have. I know you probably have like
Yeah, we have.
gone through like all of
We
those.
did try it through the school. It
Yeah.
didn't
So,
quite work.
another
But
question. In your agency, do you do mentorship? Do you do mentorship?
So the mayor's office does, we have internships, and if you have folks who are interested in interning for the mayor's office, I can send y'all.
No, mentorship.
Mentorship.
We do mentorships through Mentor New York.
The school also has a mentorship program.
And I can send more information about Mentor New York.
Do you have business cards?
I don't have business cards, I ran out, but I did put my email in this presentation. I can write it up here, all my information.
And we can make sure, we'll make sure in the next email blast that her information is on it too.
Yeah, one thing I did want to say is like if you, when I was a kid, there's not a lot of queer South Asian kids in Southern Virginia, so I did find a lot of like friends and support online. So like if, which has been amazing because now we're all still friends, even though like we were just like online pen pals like 10 years ago or
Right,
whatever. Like if you can screen that, I think online community is also very positive. Mhm. Yes.
How do you suggest introducing kids to meditation? Because it's something they're probably not going to, leap to do
Yeah,
right
it's
away.
great.
They
Yeah.
don't understand.
Question.
So how do you suggest getting them into it?
I would just say that when you, I'm like, how did my mom do it? We did not react to it well when we were younger. I think the best thing to do is introduce it as a counter measure that they can take when they're feeling really anxious. So just let them know, like, when you feel that really intense feeling right here, just breathe deeply, count to 5. Focus on something that you love, focus on a safe space, Introduce it as a tool that they can utilize when they're feeling really out of loop, yeah. And I honestly think that some schools in New York have already started doing it, but just introducing meditation in the classroom is very positive, especially in like schools like this where there's a concentration of talent. It's so important to like also emphasize like take care of yourself. Self-care is important. What do you enjoy doing outside of creating art? What is your downtime? Having these conversations. Yeah. And I'm gonna write my information on the board, so if y'all have like any questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out. We have Thrive folks throughout the city. So I can like, wherever you are, if you're in Queens, Bronx, anywhere, like we can come out and do workshops or presentations or
Meditation?
meditation, yeah.
Yeah, do you think that's something we could bring in? Do you think that our kids would accept it?
Usually kids are pretty receptive.
Maybe we'll talk again about maybe bringing that in as a workshop for the children.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
And it's like, and if you create it like, what is that thing called when you teach one? No. Like you pass it on, pay it forward.
Yeah.
Pay it forward. If you introduce that, it as a concept of pay it forward, it
I
usually
like
works
that
really
idea.
well. Right. Thank you so much,
Great,
y'all.
thank you very much.